Hi, I'm Tequia Burt, editor-in-chief of the LinkedIn Marketing Collective and the LinkedIn for Marketing blog, and welcome to this month's Collective Conversation. Each month, I sit down with a LinkedIn executive or top industry thought leader to explore the trends, challenges, and opportunities shaping the future of B2B marketing. And this month, we're digging into a topic that's top of mind for every marketer right now, the power of trust and influence in B2B. Joining me is Matt Carmichael, Senior VP of Global Trends and Foresight at Ipsos and the mind behind the What the Future series. Our conversation is a timely one, especially as new data from our 2025 B2B Marketing Benchmark installment, Trust is the New KPI, shows that trusted voices, whether influencers, analysts, or peer recommendations, are now critical to driving performance across the B2B marketing funnel. So, Matt, we've both been thinking a lot about this lately, especially in a world where influence is more fragmented and attention is harder to earn. Your recent white paper, What the Future Influence, dives deep into that very idea, exploring how trust, technology, and cultural shifts are redefining who's, got Riz in today's B2B marketing world. So looking at the findings in our B2B marketing benchmark, which by the way, Ipsos is has been our trusted partner on for the past 3 years, what stood out to you the most? What do you find the most surprising or important in this year's report?
So What the Future Influence is our monthly magazine about the future of things. And the influence issue was a fun one. We talked to a bunch of different experts in the fields of influence, but from different perspectives. So we had people talking about expert reviews. We had people talking about the role of influencers. We had people talking about influence through political speech. And one of the fun influencers we also talked to is a member of the clergy. She's the bishop for the Episcopal Church of Michigan, because clergy are really the OG influencers, right? They just have a kind of different toolkit. So we want to talk about broadly the toolkit of influence and how that's changing. And then throughout our discussion of all those tools, one of the constant themes we came back to was, much like we find in the benchmark, trust and authenticity, and how important those things are to building the relationships between brands and influencers, between influencers and those they are influencing, and how all of these kind of ecosystems work together so nicely. So seeing those themes echo through in a B2B marketing report that are also very true in the consumer marketing world, I think is really interesting and powerful, and gets to a pretty deep-seated human connection and human values and human emotions and human insights that matter for all marketers, whether they're B2B or B2C.
So one thing that I did not mention at the top of the episode is that Matt and I are old friends. We worked together for many years at I worked in the B2B on the B side in Ad Age, and he worked in the research side on Ad Age. So he also knows what he's talking about when it comes to marketing and advertising. So one of the things that the benchmark showed is that marketers using influencers tend to outperform their peers across the funnel from awareness to conversion. Why do you think that is? Why do you think influencer strategies are driving such strong results in B2B right now, especially when I feel like a couple of years ago, influencing was seen as a strictly B2C endeavor?
So I think there are a couple things at play. One is a lot of these platforms that people are influencing are algorithmically driven, right? And so by their very nature, the influencers have figured out how to make that work. It is their business, is making sure that they are connecting with audiences, engaging with audiences, growing audiences. And so they have a hugely vested interest in understanding all of these things and are experts at it. And that's why you turn to them, right? They have an audience, and they have an audience that is vested in them, as well as, by definition and by extension, the kind of products and services that the influencers are influencing about. And because they tend to be more, individuals in a lot of cases and thought leaders, they have a lot of authenticity, they have a lot of credibility, they have a lot of reasons to trust them in the space. And one thing we see in our research, in the WTF influence issue especially, is that the things that people look for expertise vary. It's not necessarily like, oh, I have a strong academic background in that, or I have a strong commercial background in that, or I have credentials and I'm members of associations, though that can certainly help. But there are a lot of different ways that people can be experts in these kind of social spaces. And I think audiences are turning to that in a lot of different ways.
It's really, really interesting. And I think one of the things that surprised me about the study is that influencer impacts those trusted voices, because you usually would think you'd see them at the top of the journey, right? The start of the buyer journey and at the top of the funnel. Why do you think? Because one of the things that we found is that these voices can be more effective deeper down in the funnel when decisions get more complex. Why do you think that's happening?
So I think there are a couple things at play. One is that influencer marketing is a tactic as part of a broader strategy, right? And so you want all of your marketing to be hitting at different parts of the funnel, whether that's newsletters are up here and thought leadership pieces are over here and webinars and events are over here and influencers are here. Influencers, again, because they have these relationships and because they are always creating new content and new thought leadership and new ideas, there are a lot of different ways that they can hit across the funnel. And a lot of the influencers also have their own brand and their own products and their own services. So they also have this kind of full funnel marketing going on as well. They're not just trying to hit their own piece. So I think there are a lot of different ways that they can be hitting in these different places. And I think the other part of it is that they are often good storytellers. And because part of marketing and part of these relationships is about creating a sense that you as the customer, the end buyer, are not alone. Other people have gone through these journeys. Other people have solved these problems. These products and services have helped them solve these
Right.
problems. And you see the influencer telling all of that story all the way through their funnel and their journey. You
Right.
can then see yourself in all of those different places.
Yeah. So another one of the things we found is that influencers plus video is a powerful combination, right? So when you combine influence and video, it's an extremely effective pairing. What makes it so effective, and what should marketers keep in mind as they integrate the two?
Well, I think part of it is that authenticity piece, right? Video by nature, you see the person, you hear them talking, you see their mannerisms and their expressions and their emotions, and all of those things that help you connect with them. And sure, video can be manipulated and video can be, yes, I'm sitting here in my attic and that's pretty obvious. But you can also there could easily be like huge production around me and just trying to make the attic seem authentic, right? So we know that there's things going on behind the scenes usually, but it still creates this sense of connection and this sense of connectivity that is really important to human emotions. And all of that can help create these connections that help us build this trust.
So that's really interesting, especially we're talking about trust and credibility, right? When we're entering an era where AI is everywhere and people have even less reason, right, to trust people that they're saying, because why would I trust that this person didn't just go pull whatever it is insight they had out of ChatGPT? So how can influencers retain their authenticity in this era? And how does AI add a layer of complexity to this whole thing?
So this kind of gets at two different pieces of research that I work on at Ipsos. One is our global trends, which is the largest public survey we do, 50,000 people across 50 markets. And the other is our global AI monitor, which we've been tracking since before the launch of ChatGPT. So we have this kind of interesting benchmark, right? And one of the global trends, we only have 9. One of them is about the power of trust. And that gets into, as we are in a fairly low trust world these days, we have lost some trust in institutions. We have lost trust in systems. We have lost trust in various professions. And yet, we also still very much trust as we get closer into ourselves. So we might not trust doctors, but we trust our doctor. We might not trust, politicians, but we keep voting for our local representatives because we know them and believe in them. We just don't believe
Right.
in the system.
Right.
We are looking as humans for things we can trust. And we are always looking for that because we need to have decisions or information we can make decisions on. So the power of trust comes into finding these connections and finding the things that we can trust and the things that we can believe in. And I think that's really powerful and important. And as we are moving into this world of AI, where even in our data, we see people saying, I don't know if I can believe the thing I see anymore. I don't know if I can believe the thing I hear anymore. And in the US, especially, we have this tension between what we call the wonder and the worry of AI and technology in general, right? That we see all these benefits, we hear about all these benefits, we use all of these things in our lives, but we're also concerned about fundamental things like, is it going to take my job? Is it real? Is it disinformation? Where does privacy come into all of these things? So I think trust is going to be necessary to help us kind of continue to navigate between those two worlds of worry and wonder, or wonder and worry. We like to put the positive one first, right? We want to lean into the wonder of all these technologies because we know what a lot of the benefits can be. So I think trust is going to be really important, but also I think it's going to be really challenging in the next few 3-5 years, especially. We'll get into that a little bit more as we kind of spin this toward the future, but it's going to be harder and harder to trust the things we're seeing online. Like, are you real? Who knows? And that's going to be, I think, a really challenging place, and especially important for these influencers to be able to lean into, this is me. This is really me. I am here with you virtually through these cameras and these microphones and these lights and all the things. But you're still getting this personal experience. I still have my own expertise. My voice does not sound like it was created with an AI assistant. And I mean that in terms of like my actual speaking voice, but also the things I am saying are said in the ways that you know me and you know I would say them. So I think all of those boundaries are going to blur. I think it's going to be a little tricky trying to figure this navigation out, but trust and authenticity are going to be the currency that gets us through.
So one of the ideas that the benchmark report this year positions is that trust can sort of be operationalized. So we introduce a new trust system, which is a way to think about your full funnel strategy through the lens of trust and credibility. So based on your research, what role should influencers play in a marketer's broader trust building framework?
Yeah, I think the framework is actually one of the most interesting parts of this report. And that was one of the parts that I kind of leaned into a lot, is that, yes, we can measure these things. We can make them systematic. We can act with intention around these topics and around trust and influence, et cetera. And so I think that's really one of the kind of main takeaways for marketers, is that, yes, this isn't just something we're talking about as thought leaders. Like, it's not some warm, fuzzy thing, although it is warm and fuzzy. But it's also something that can be very critical to your business and measured with KPIs and ROI and all of the tools we are used to. And I think that's really key.
Yeah. So you've studied, right, how audiences judge how authentic creators are in a B2B world that values that really deep expertise. What should marketers be looking for when they're vetting their influencers or co-creating content?
So that's a really big challenge in the industry, right? Is how do you make sure the influencers are who they say they are? And we see all kinds of fraud in these platforms too. You know, people are inflating their follower accounts, they're inflating their own credentials. They might not even own some of the handles and the IP they're talking about and claiming as. So it's really important to work with some sort of tool or some sort of agency to make sure that you're vetting your influencers in a way to make sure that they are who they say they are. And that's an important part of trust too, right? Is knowing that we as marketers have reached out to the right influencers and make sure that they are the credible people that they say they are. And sure, in some cases, they're very well known and all of that is well known. But in a lot of cases, especially in B2B,
Right.
that's harder to vet. And so there are services, we have one, there are others, to make sure that you are working with the right folks. And I think that's especially true in our current climate of the world, where anything that can become political probably will.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things with influencers is they have personalities and they have opinions and they have ideas. And you just have to make sure that that all works with your brand as well.
So I have just one last question for you. If we were writing next year's benchmark right now, what questions about creators, influencer trust would you want to make sure we ask, and why?
It's funny. One of the things with What the Future is, the original kind of conceit of it is, we would ask the thought leaders that we're interviewing, what's something that in 5 or 10 years you're going to wish you had a trend line on?
Mm-hmm.
And then being market researchers, we can go and like ask those questions today. So I love this question, right? And I think we've touched on some of the topics. Think, it's 2025. There's like a law that we have to talk about AI in everything we do, right? Like, it's just part of the game. I think the trend lines around AI are going to be interesting. I think the trend lines around trust are going to be interesting. I think the platforms where we're engaging with these people will always be a topic of interest. And I think that as we're spinning these things forward, the interplay of all of these things is really what's going to be important. With global trends and with research like this, we see that the more different notes in the chord you can hit, the better that is going to sound, right? So as you're thinking through the various parts of the funnel, as you're thinking about the various platforms of influence, as you're thinking about how AI falls into all of these things, you can't think of all of these things siloed. You have to think about kind of the center of all of these Venn diagrams.
Oh my God, Matt, that was, and I'm telling the truth. This has been one of my favorite collective conversations so far. So thank you. For being here and sharing all of your great wisdom with us. To our listeners and viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. And don't forget to subscribe to this newsletter to make sure you're a part of the collective conversation. Hey, thank you, man.